Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Sharing Stories. Today I'm joined by Susan Forgie, the after sales manager from DA Forgie, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, agricultural dealer in Northern Ireland. Is that fair enough, Susan?
Oh, I think it's fair enough. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So look, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about what you do, what you're interested in, just a wee general overview before we get started on the questions.
Okay, so I joined DA Forgie just 3 years ago, and our business retails and services agricultural and garden equipment. So we would sell diggers, tractors, lawnmowers, telehandlers, so a real mix of equipment, and we also service the equipment as well. But the business has really grown over the last few years, and my sister and I are both working in it. It's been going for 50 years. We're celebrating our 50th year next year, which is such an achievement. It was started by my parents, my dad initially, and then my mum joined whenever they got married. And prior to actually joining the business, I had a previous life as a solicitor, doing a lot of family work.
So what brought you back into the family business?
So growing up, I think if you're involved in a family business, you've probably worked there on and off your whole life. So I would have worked there Saturday mornings, when I was at university, over the summer in the stores, in between jobs when I didn't have a job. But my mum in particular was always very clear that family business is here as an option for you, but it's very important that you have your own career first and you get your own job and maybe have your own vocation. But if you want to come back to the family business, that's fine, but it should always be a choice to come back to the family business. So I did always want to be a solicitor. I went off, did my degree at Queen's, actually trained to be a solicitor then in England, and then moved back to Northern Ireland and worked here for 7 years. And then actually my parents then, I have 3 sisters, one already works in the business. So my parents said to the other 3 of us, your dad and I are thinking about our succession planning. Would any of the 3 of you be interested in coming back to the business? And I said, well, actually, I would be really interested. And sort of thought, well, that would be it. But then they were like, well, if you want to, then you'll have to apply for the job, and we want to know you're taking it seriously and that you're the right person for the job. Then I did go through a process, which I know maybe sounds daft to a lot of people, but I think if you may be involved in family business, you might understand. You want to make sure that I think they wanted to make sure I was the right fit for the business and that it was the right fit for me, so that I'd be changing careers for the right reasons and that, I could do the job. So then I did go through a process with one of our manufacturers, Kubota, and they said I would be suitable, thankfully. I always think that'd be really embarrassing, applying for your family business and not getting the job.
Yeah, huge pressure.
So no, all worked out fine. I suppose they say the rest is history now. So I've been back 3 years, but yeah, that's my background.
It seems like two very different roles. So is there any kind of link? Is there skills that you've picked up being a solicitor that you feel have helped you in the business and helped you fulfill the role that you're currently working on?
Yeah, like it's a really interesting question, because and a lot of people would say, oh, it's a very different job for you. But what I would say is, being a solicitor, you actually have so many skills in working with people, managing your clients' expectations. And I find I really had a very transferable skill set actually for coming back into the business. And then the role that I'm in now, I would deal a lot with our workshop, our stores, dealing with our manufacturers and customers as well. So I really feel I had a lot of transferable skills, and those that I didn't have, I've been able to learn, like maybe around more the business aspect. I've been able to go on courses, and I've been very well supported by Kubota. We sell their tractors, diggers and lawnmowers, sorry. Mm-hmm. But I was really supported by them to help me with my progression in the business, to sort of prepare me for the role. So to be honest, I think coming from a background of a solicitor, I actually think it was a good fit.
Excellent. So Kubota, you were saying, like, did they do training with you? Because they're based in Japan, aren't they?
Yeah, Kubota is a Japanese company, and then that's where their headquarters is. But they're actually a worldwide company. They're a huge company, actually. They've headquarters all over the world. I've actually visited Kubota Canada with them. So it was called the Size and Tan program, which means at the cutting edge. I don't know if that's me or Kubota. But so I did a program with them on management and leadership. There was different aspects to that. It was personal development, development of your business. And then in the last module, we did go over to Canada to meet other dealers in Canada and the headquarters. And that course really gave me the confidence to, in some ways, believe in myself that I could do the job, because although I had a career before, I'd never really managed a large number of people before. And in some ways, it was quite daunting to come back. But that course really gave me the courage that I could do the job.
Yeah, it must have reassured your parents too. I'm actually surprised you're saying about the interview process that you had to go through for a family business. I think it's really good. But I suppose that would have also put their minds at ease, seeing how seriously you were taking it and going through, I suppose, more education. Even though you were a qualified solicitor, did you go and realise that there was maybe a few skills gaps and stuff and moving into the family business? So that's really positive. How do you manage, like, if Kubota, there's a couple of other of your partnerships, the people that you work with in terms of Italian companies, Norwegian companies, how do you manage that? Because that must be a nightmare. And I suppose things like Brexit would have had an effect on import and export of goods and all that kind of stuff. So is that a big challenge within the business, having all these different partnerships to manage?
So our main brands are Kubota, Kverneland, Merlot and Honda. So my sister Ria, she actually heads up the Honda team, and we're the main importer of Honda in Northern Ireland, and she has a dealer network of sub-dealers. And they're also a Japanese company. So we deal with those manufacturers. Everyone is very different. I suppose they're all very individual, almost like people, and with their own personalities. Like the Italians work very differently to the Japanese, for example. And since I've joined DA Forgie, there have been quite a few challenges. Not only Brexit, but COVID was a big challenge in our business, making sure our staff were safe. But equally, we were a key business, so making sure we could still serve our customers, because farming didn't stop during COVID. And then we also had massive supply problems. You remember the Suez Canal was blocked, and there were a lot of, our diggers were on that, and different supply problems. Because of those challenges, there was another electrical fire in a factory. I think that was maybe in Japan too, and then that affected the supply of diggers with electronics. So there have been a few supply problems, but we deal with every company really has their own rep, and we would deal with them, and they would come and visit us, or we would maybe go over to England.
So tell me a wee bit more about your role within the business. What is after sales?
So when I joined the business, I suppose in a way there was nearly no sorry, I can't say that word. There was no specific role for me. And then I sort of naturally found a role in what I would call after sales, or really what our manufacturers would call after sales. So it's nearly after we sell a machine to someone, the after sales service that they need from that, whether that be parts from our stores. So I would helped in the stores and making sure we were buying parts at the right prices and things like that, price checking, so we could give best value to our customers. And then also, as another after sales role is our workshop, which is quite a big part of our business. We would have 15 mechanics working on the machines, and a lot of that servicing, going out to breakdowns. And then I suppose I also, because I would say of my last role as a lawyer, I would do quite a bit of staff management, nearly like an HR role, dealing with staff, any problems they have. I would try to have an open door policy. People could come and speak to me if they had any issues. To be honest, I suppose it's nearly like a general manager role. A lot of problems would just land on my desk within the business, to be quite honest.
I would say it sounds like it. It sounds like you have a lot to do in your working week. I read that you take a flexible approach to customer service. What does that mean?
Well, we try to provide a really good customer service experience to our customers, because there are lots of people selling farm machinery, but what we want to do is give customers a really good service. So we try to be flexible. Like, would you need your lawnmower picked up? Would you need it delivered back to you? Try and work with our customers to accommodate them. Like, do they need us to go out to them, bringing in their machines? But we try to give a high level of customer service to our customers, to ensure that they get the best experience from us from when they buy the machine to then when it's 3 years old and they're still bringing it back to getting it serviced, so that our customers want to come back to the DA Forgie brand.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that's why you've been in business for so long, you know, coming up on your 50th year, as you're saying there. So you must take great pride in the effect that you've had as a family and as a business on local economy and supporting local farmers and local construction industries and stuff like that. Is that a big part? The customer service is what keeps people coming back to support the business as well.
I think so. Like, we would have a really good relationship with a lot of our customers. Like, a lot of our customers are our friends now as well. And I do think people come back to us because they know they will get a good customer service experience from us.
So it's really interesting that you work with your sister and your mum and dad's involved in the business. I would imagine that can throw up issues with boundaries and stuff in terms of family and the professional side of things. Like, do you have any strategies or any advice for people for managing that side of the business?
That is an interesting one. Like, I'm very different to my sister Ria. Like, my children would say she's sort of the fun auntie, compared to me. But so Ria's good boundaries. At the start, I definitely talked about work too much, and I would have talked about work a lot more at the weekends. But now we have that boundary in place that we do talk about work less, and I actually really see the importance of not talking about work all the time, especially at family events. Now, sometimes you'll find we do, but we try not to. And I think it is really important for family life that we're not talking about work all the time. So yes, I do. I work with my sister and my mum and dad. And like, I've heard my dad saying it can be challenging, which I think is very true. And it can be very difficult working with your family because you know them so well. But that's the great thing about working with family. You can say something, but then it's all fine again. Nobody holds grudges. We all just move on. And then if you see them at Sunday lunch, nobody's sort of still in a bad mood with you about what happened on Friday in the stores or something like that. But it is very important to have boundaries. I think the great thing about working with a family is they are your family. And in a family business, you all have the same end goal, that you want what's best for the business. And I think we definitely all have the same core values because of that.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's in it for their own progression, like in terms of their own wee success story and using it as a stepping stone. Everybody's there and fully committed to the business, which is lovely. In terms of the business then, I thought about it. Now I have a background in marketing and working in media. And I thought it must be quite a challenging business to market and they actually sell products, just simply because when I think about some of the biggest networks that like local businesses would use would be things like Facebook, but I would imagine there's not a pile of people scrolling through Facebook that are there ready to buy a tractor or a telehandler or something. So how do you actually get the message out about what you do and your core values and being a family business? Is it attend events like Balmoral, or what do you do?
So we would do quite a few shows. We would do Balmoral show, and we actually took a really big stand at that this year and showcase our products. But as much as it is to showcase our products, it's for us to get out there and see our customers. And we do a couple more shows, the spring and winter fairs up in Belfast as well, and we'll do our local show in Limavady. But you'd be surprised at the number of farmers on Facebook, to be honest. Now, they're maybe not going to click buy now for a new tractor at 60 grand.
Yeah.
But they might then want to inquire more and give you a ring. So we actually would use social media quite heavy. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and we just started on TikTok actually.
Nice.
We would also work with other farmers. Like, we work quite a bit with Grassmen. I don't know if you've heard of them on Facebook, but they have a huge following, like maybe have 1 million followers across their social media. And we would like recently we just actually lent them a new hog silage trailer, which we showcased at Balmoral show, and then they've borrowed it to give us feedback on, and then they'll make videos on it. So we would work quite closely with Grassmen, and we've sold them a Merlot telehandler, and Ria lent them Mimo as a robotic lawnmower, and then they would do videos on that for us. But they're independent, you know. So they're not really, I suppose, like an influencer. They're giving a report to their customers. If they don't like something, they'll tell them. But we would work with people like that. But we do quite a bit on our social medias actually, and then we'd advertise quite a bit on our website.
That's fantastic. Brilliant that you're kind of getting out there and using other brands in order to progress the business. So you and your sister both work in the business at the minute. I would imagine in terms of the industries that you're working on, construction, agriculture, representation of women in them industries are quite underrepresented. Is that a fair thing to say?
It is. To be honest, across a lot of small businesses, generally there are very few women in charge or women in senior roles. But especially in this industry, in an agricultural construction industry, there are fewer women. You know, you do see more women going into these jobs now, but unfortunately it is underrepresented. And I actually just started working with Women in Tech, they're called, and it's called the Not Just for Boys. So it's like a movement to encourage women to go into different roles like mechanicing or construction, and how like that could be an option for women as well. But I think children need to learn from a young age that it is an option, that you could be a digger operative at 6 or 7, that's not just for boys. So I think it is important that women see these roles and, you know, we can do them well.
Yeah, so it's about breaking down stereotypes at a fairly... Do you feel it's actually at that early age is where the change needs to be happening? Because the kind of normal here, or when I say normal, the stereotypical breakdown is young boys get diggers they play with and young girls get dolls, and that obviously has an impact in, you know, growing up. Is it that they need to see more women in these roles and see somebody that they can look up to and aspire to become, and that will change participation in the industries?
Yeah, I think it would definitely help. You know, there's no doubt sometimes, you know, these stereotypes just happen naturally, and maybe boys do prefer tractors or girls prefer dolls, but I think you know, it's okay for the girls to play with the tractors too.
Yeah.
Like my kids will have always seen me in this business, so I hope they'll think when they're growing up, I have 2 young girls, that if we want to work in the yard or we want to do this job, that they'll feel they can because of who they are. It's not because they're a girl they couldn't do it or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I've been very fortunate to grow up with my mum, always worked in the business, so she's always really been at the forefront for women. And our background is a lot of, you know, her sisters all are very successful careers as well. So I've always grown up seeing that women can very successful jobs. Mm-hmm. So that never put me off. Being a woman never put me off going into the family business.
Yeah. Is there anything that you are considering doing as a business, in terms of maybe apprenticeships, or to encourage more young women to be involved in the yard and join the business?
Yeah, like I would love to take on an apprentice that wasn't a woman. I think they would be a great fit for a workshop as well. Mm-hmm. There just are not, as unfortunately, many girls that apply for the courses. Yeah. But I think working with groups like Women in Tech, they encourage girls to go forward for these courses. So I think we are now a champion for them, and having that work with them, if they have a student that did want an opportunity to be an apprentice, they could approach us. But I think having a good mix of boys and girls, or men and women, is the best mix for a business. Not just men or not just women. I think it's healthier to have a mix of men and women in a business, and that works well.
I always think it's the right person for the job. You know, it's based
Absolutely.
On skills and attributes, and that's
Yes.
what should be the first thing that's considered. And if they're the right person, their gender or how they identify shouldn't really be an issue. But I do think things are kind of moving in the right direction in society in general. Mm-hmm. And that. So you've mentioned succession planning, and your parents sitting down and having that meeting with the 3 of you and bringing you in. Is that something that's been developed upon now, like in terms of the succession planning? How's it going? What's next in that?
Yeah. So my parents did approach us all. They spoke to, even though Ray was in the business, they did speak to the 4 of us about it. And it's a very emotional thing, because at the end of the day, although we're talking about business, which is very matter of fact, we're also a family as well. So sometimes board meetings can be very, you know, they should be formal, but then it's like your mum and dad and your sister and you. Although we do sometimes generally bring in our accountant Donna, she would come to a lot of the meetings as well, maybe for a bit of diplomacy sometimes. But I think it is, again, sometimes the lines can be blurred. Succession planning is, I suppose, it's a very difficult conversation, I think, to start, because you're planning for the future, maybe when parents won't be there. But what I would say to people is it's actually a really important conversation to have. And nearly when we had the conversation about succession planning, it was a relief off my mind that people were speaking about it. I could say I would love to go into the business and to have the opportunity to go into it. And I was so happy we were speaking about it. And I just think if that's how I was feeling, that's maybe how a lot of people feel about family businesses, because it's hard when maybe you don't know where you stand. Like, I always thought I would like to go back into the business, but then when nobody mentions it to you, you sort of then doubt yourself or wonder, will I, won't I? Will I stay being a solicitor? Will I go into the family business? And I think if there are people in that situation, it's really important to have the conversations.
Is the whole notion of succession planning, so is it for you is about maintaining the core values and ethos about what the business is about? Is that like the end goal, so that no matter who's in charge of the business, that the customer service you've talked about, you know, the way the business operates continues?
It's very much so. It's very much that really I see my role as to future-proof DA Forgie for the next 50 years, to ensure that DA Forgie is still going, because, you know, we've over 40 staff now, and I feel such a responsibility to them to make sure that I can keep the business going, that everybody has their job and we continue to grow. So I see my role actually very different to my father's. He started the business, grew the business, whereas now my goal is to future-proof it, to make sure we can get through, you know, the next 50 years, as I said.
And is it your hope then that your own kids are going to take over from you and Ria and be the next generation that's running the business and continuing on after you are finished with the business?
So my kids I have twins that are 6, Lily and Ria. I actually called one of my children after my sister. And then I have a 3-year-old David. I know lots of family names. I called my son then after my dad. But so they're very young at the minute. But we live beside the business, actually, the way I grew up. And I hope my kids do work there on a Saturday morning like me, and because I think it's really important that they learn the people skills and are able to speak to people, answer the phone, and customer service. So I would love them to work in the business as a summer job as well. I actually really see benefit in what my mother did for me, in that, you know, encouraged me to have my own career away from the business. And I actually think in hindsight that was really important, that I've worked away, I've worked for other people, and to see what it's like. And then if my kids wanted to have their own careers away and then come back into the business, I would absolutely, you know, welcome them in. But it would have to be a choice for them, because I think it's really important. You want to come back to your family business rather than if you ever felt pressurized or, you know, felt obliged. And I don't think you would give it your all then. Whereas I think if it's your choice, you'll come back and you really want to be there.
Yeah, forcing somebody on it, make them maybe feel a bit trapped and feel like they have to be there and should be there rather than wanting to be there. So that's good. And it's nice that when you talk about succession, that you've taken that ethos from your mum.
Yeah.
And now you'll use that for your own children, and hopefully that'll pass on too. So I suppose that's succession as well. So what about looking ahead in terms of the future for DA Forgie? You've kind of talked about maintaining stuff, but is it new partnerships with other dealers? Is it moving into new areas? What's the kind of, let's say, next 5-10 years for DA Forgie? What's your hopes and ambitions?
So my vision.
Your vision?
Yeah, my vision.
I couldn't, that's brilliant. I couldn't get the word. They summarise everything and it was right in front of me. Vision. Yeah. What's your vision for the business?
Well, I would love DA Forgie to continue to grow. I would really love to grow our partnership with our manufacturers, especially Kubota, and I would love to become a larger dealer with them. At the minute we are what they call a full line dealer, but I would absolutely love to cover a larger area with them. And at the minute, we actually have 2 depots. We've 1 depot in Limavady and 1 in Lisburn. And we're looking to get bigger premises in Lisburn. So ultimately, I would love Lisburn to have a bigger depot, so then we could serve more customers in that area. But keep the business growing. Sometimes I feel it might grow out of control. But
you still need a bigger family to run it. So, look, that's brilliant. I learned loads about it today, and it's really nice talking about the family business and structure and succession plan and all that kind of stuff. So thanks very much for coming on, giving up your time to be on the podcast. So I'll just finish by saying that thanks to everybody for watching. Make sure to subscribe, to share, distribute the video or the podcast if you're listening on Apple Podcast. It helps, and it'll help the channel grow, and we can do more of these podcasts with interesting people like Susan. Thanks for watching.
you.